morning, everyone, and welcome to the Homeownership Workshop at Hazel Harvey Peace Center. Thank you for joining us not only in person today, but also online. This workshop today will be presented by the City of Fort Worth, represented by the Neighborhood Services Department, and in partnership with Tarrant Appraisal District. The City of Fort Worth Neighborhood Services Department, our mission is building strong neighborhoods by empowering residents with housing, community development, and social services. Here's just a few areas that we cover in the Neighborhood Services Department, and I will talk a little bit more about community action partners, specifically our home buyer assistance program, Lead Safe, priority repair, and a few other programs that will be beneficial to our homeowners, not only in Fort Worth, but Tarrant County as well. So just want to show just a little snapshot of some of the areas that we provide to you. Community Action Partners. Community Action Partners is part of the Neighborhood Services Department. Our goal is to assist residents living an independent, self-sufficient life by providing an opportunity for professional skills, training, education, and supportive service. Specifically, we do assist the elderly, disabled, and households with children 5 and under, and of course, we have services for our veterans. Our utility assistance. We have a program called Comprehensive Energy Assistance Programs, and it provides a variety of other sub-programs within that area. First is the Utility Assistance Program, where individuals and households will be able to have utility payments up to 6 months per year, or up to 6 times per year, excuse me. And then our low-income housing water assistance program. This is a new initiative to help residents pay their water bills. So we would definitely encourage you to look at that program. And here in a slide, I will provide additional information on that. We also have the Household Crisis Program. This program assists if there's a disconnection or a bill during a weather crisis not already covered by the Utility Assistance Program. So an example of that would be probably a year or two ago when they called it the Snowmageddon in February, where it felt like we were in New York versus Texas. That would be an example of that particular program. Next, we have the Household Crisis Program Repair. This program repairs HVAC systems for priority groups at any time in general population during weather crises. But of course, depending on the program, each program does have specific eligibility criteria. So back to the low-income household water assistance program, LIWAP, that you may hear sometimes. The program goal is to assist low-income households, particularly those with the lowest incomes that pay a high proportion of income from drinking water and wastewater services. We would like to invite you out on February 15th at the Family Action Center. Our staff will be ready to serve you. So make sure you bring the information that's on the screen, a picture ID, your electric bill, proof of legal residency, and your proof of household income. Again, that will be on February 15th, starting at 9 a.m. at the Family Action Center. And we hope that you can join us. If it doesn't benefit you, maybe a neighbor, a church member, or a community member will be able to use these services. So how can you access the CAP services? I'm glad you asked. So you're able to go to fortworthtexas.gov/CAP, and you'll be able to upload your required documents, ask any questions about your application. The number is 817-392-2276. So don't be afraid to ask questions regarding your utility assistance, water assistance. they are definitely here to assist you. Next, I'll provide a brief overview of our housing program services. If there are any questions regarding the presentation, we'll take those at the end, and we have subject matter experts that are here to answer your questions. So we have priority repair program, the lead safe program, weatherization, and the home buyer assistance program. Priority repair. Priority repair program helps with electrical system failures, roof repair, air conditioning, help in heating systems, as well as subflooring and plumbing issues. One of the criteria is that you have to be located in the city of Fort Worth, of course, meet eligibility requirements, but this is a great way of getting your repairs done, that you don't have to dip into your emergency savings fund. You can use some of these resources. And we know how critical HVAC systems are when it's really cold, when it's 30 degrees, or when it's Texas, because we know Texas has bipolar weather. Make sure that you have your HVAC system up and running. Next is our lead safe program. Lead used in homes built before 1978. It goes with those that have serious health risks, especially to children. And program addresses lead-based paint in homes. This program is really not only to protect our elderly, but our children as well. And this particular program also has specific eligibility requirements, and we can provide some more information if needed at our website. Next is the weatherization assistance program. This particular program reduces energy costs for low-income families, particularly for those that are elderly, people with disabilities, and children through installation of energy efficiency measures, while of course ensuring the health and safety of our community. Just some of the examples of some of the repairs that they do is improved thermal envelope, which is the attic, the wall, and floor installation. As I have here as an example to improve efficiency is the heat and our AC units, refrigerators, and bulbs. And of course, our appliances such as gas stoves, gas heat, and gas water heater as well. So this is definitely a great program that is available to you. Again, this is also a program that you have to meet eligibility requirements. Next is our home buyer assistance program. I know sometimes when you hear home buyer, especially right now, it can feel very discouraging because I know the market has gone tremendously up. But there are some resources that are available to you, and they provide mortgage assistance for first-time home buyers. However, you have not owned a home in the last 3 years, okay? So if you have not owned a home in the last 3 years, you may be eligible for this. So make sure you look into this and ask questions if you can be a part of this program. And they provide up to $20,000 for homes in Fort Worth. You can use the full $20,000 for mortgage assistance. And you can use up to 3% of the loan amount for closing costs. Also, with this particular program, they have approved list of vendors that you must go through. But our staff will be more than willing to assist you with that, go through your documentation, as well as confirm the vendors that you're looking into for your home. Next, how to apply for housing program services. If you're interested in learning anything about our housing program services, whether it be priority repair, lead hazard, weatherization, our home buyer assistance program, please take a snapshot so you can contact the assigned staff member or the particular website for application, so they'll be able to reach out to you and assist you with that. Okay. Well, next I have the pleasure of announcing our Tarrant Appraisal District representative today. You will hear from Jeff Law, the Chief Appraiser. and he will talk to you about some of the great services that Tarrant Appraisal District offers. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak today and partner with the city of Fort Worth on providing the citizens some really good, valuable information. First of all, I want to kind of talk about what the Tarrant Appraisal District is. We're a political subdivision of the state of Texas. We were created in 1981 by the Texas legislature, the purpose by which was to kind of do some separation from the folks that did the appraisal work and the folks that actually spent the money. So in the past, cities and counties and schools would not only would they do their own appraisals, but they would also determine with the tax rates and so on and so forth. So that was a separation which has been good for the past 40 plus years. Tarrant Appraisal District actually does appraisal work and services for 73 local jurisdictions. The county, all the cities in Tarrant County, all the schools in Tarrant County, and some of the special districts like the hospital, the Tarrant County Junior College, and some municipal utility districts. Another thing we do is that we administer property tax exemptions. So any type of property tax exemption that would give property tax relief, that would be something else that we would administer, we would take care of. We also maintain ownership of all of our, you need to back up. Yeah, we maintain ownership of all of our residents. We have over 1.8 million parcels in Tarrant County, which includes both residential, commercial, business, personal property, and mineral accounts. And the addresses that we use are maintained so that the tax bills can be sent by the Tarrant County Tax Office and the Grapevine-Colleyville Tax Office to the different taxpayers, so they can pay their taxes. We're broken into 6 different departments. We have an administration department. We have a support services department, which handles exemptions and ownership changes and addresses. We also have an IT department, which most entities have. And then we have a residential appraisal department, a commercial appraisal department, and a business personal property appraisal department, which does all the appraisal work. One of the things that I really want to stress today is the importance of a homestead exemption. How many of you in here have a homestead exemption on your property now? How many of you do not have a homestead exemption on your property? Okay, those that do not, we do have applications here on hand that we can pass out and give you so that you can take advantage of this thing. So what does a homestead exemption do? It actually reduces your property tax liability. Right now, the state law mandates that for school tax purposes, every school district in the state of Texas has to give a property owner a $40,000 homestead exemption. So let's say, for example, your home is worth $100,000. For school tax purposes, and if you qualify for the exemption, which qualifications really include that you have to own the property on January 1st, you have to live there as your primary principal residence, and you don't have a homestead anywhere else, you're eligible for this exemption. So if you have a house that's worth $100,000, $40,000 is subtracted initially from that calculation, so you would only pay tax on $60,000. It's a big reduction, and it's a big help. Now, obviously, if your house is worth $200,000 or $300,000, you still get the same $40,000 exemption, but it is helpful. We also have exemptions for people that are age 65 or older. We have exemptions for people that are listed as disabled by the Social Security Administration. We have a lot of exemptions for disabled veterans and other veterans that are out there. So there's a lot of different types of exemptions that people can be entitled to, but they need to apply. Right now, there is some legislation that's being introduced in the Texas legislature. Many of you may not know, but the legislature is back in session. The legislature meets once every 2 years. And I know that the lieutenant governor and the governor, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, recently announced that he wants to increase the homestead exemption from $40,000, and I've heard it's as much as to $60,000. I've heard $70,000. I've heard $75,000. And at one point in time, Governor Abbott came out and said he'd like to see a $100,000 exemption. Now, none of these are in law right now. But as they go through the process, they're going to discuss, debate, talk about the fact of raising the homestead exemption. So it's very important. If you don't have a homestead exemption, you really should apply and get one, because you would get access to the savings if you do so. Another thing that a homestead exemption will provide you as a homeowner is an appraisal limitation. Now, there's three types of value that we deal with in the appraisal district. One is the market value, what the property would sell for if you were to put it on the market to sell it, market value. The next two are called the appraised value and taxable value. These are nothing but math calculations. We start with the market value, but currently the law says if you have a homestead exemption, that your appraised value from year to year can only go up 10% per year. Now, that doesn't mean, again, if your house is worth $200,000 today and it goes to $300,000 next year, what it would sell for, we have to record that. But if your house was appraised, it had an appraised value of $200,000, it can only go up 10% to $220,000. So your house might be worth $300,000, but you would only be taxed on the $220,000, minus, for school purposes, minus the $40,000 exemption. So it's a very important part of the homestead process is to be able to take advantage of the appraisal limitation. Another bill that's been introduced, which would reduce that 10% appraisal cap down to 5%. So again, if it passes, instead of being able to go up 10% per year, it would only go up 5% per year. So we'll have to wait and see if these proposed bills pass through the legislature and become law. But again, if you don't have the homestead exemption, you don't get to take advantage of these savings that the legislature is doing. Now, I do want to also address some scams that are out there. All homestead exemptions are free. All you have to do is go to our website or come to our office, fill out a form, meet the eligibility requirements, which are relatively easy and simple to meet, and it does not cost anything to get a homestead exemption. But there are companies out there that want to charge you a fee for filing this exemption. Typically, the fee is anywhere from $35 to $45, plus any refunds that you may get, they take half of the refund. And another thing that they make the property owner do is they make them change their mailing address from their current mailing address to the mailing address of the company that's charging the fee, so that the refund goes to them, and then they change the mailing address back. I don't recommend anyone use a company like this in order to obtain a homestead exemption. I recommend you come to our office, talk to one of our staff members. We will assist you for free. It doesn't cost anything. And any refunds that you're eligible for, we will encourage you to get those, and all the refund money goes back to you directly, and it doesn't go to anyone else. So you get the full refund. So be careful of that. We had a time when they started doing this. We had property owners that were engaging these companies, paying them the $45, and then the company would just provide them with a homestead application. They'd fill it out, turn it in, but the problem was that they already had a homestead exemption in place. So they were paying people $45 to get a piece of paper for something that they already had. So I encourage you to contact the appraisal district and seek our advice before you do anything like that with people that are trying to charge you for services. You can get all the information you really need to sign up for a homestead exemption on our website. Again, we have forms here available today. If anyone needs one, we can provide that. But you can go to tad.org, www.tad.org, and you can get that information online. I want to talk a little bit. Let's go to that next slide about the tax calendar. This is an important calendar for appraisal district services, which everything that we deal with typically has a deadline associated with it. Okay, and I just real fast want to go over it. I'm not going to read everything to you, but typically January 1st to May the 15th is what we refer to as the appraisal phase. This is when the appraisal districts are trying to perform the appraisals and wrap up the appraisals. Around May 15th is the protest deadline. If someone is not happy with the appraised value that the appraisal district has placed on their property, they do have the right to protest that value before the appraisal review board. Typically, May the 15th is the deadline for filing for protest, okay? And I would encourage anyone that believes that we're incorrect, file a protest. Come down to our office and talk to staff, talk to the appraisers. We'll provide you with information of how we arrived at that value. We don't get them all right all the time. We do a really good job of getting them correct within a range. But sometimes we're limited on the information that we have. Sometimes there may be something wrong with your property. As she pointed out earlier, there may be issues with HVAC systems that we're not aware of. There may be issues with foundation problems that we're not aware of. If you'll come in and talk to us about some of those issues, we can look at those situations and see if there's any adjustments that need to be made to property values. But we encourage you to do that before May the 15th. Typically between April the 1st and July the 20th, the Appraisal Review Board is working out these problems, and so is staff. Staff is trying to work out these problems with differences in appraised values. And then by July the 20th, through July the 20th, July 25th, we're working on the certification process. July 25th to October the 1st is the assessment phase. This is when the appraisal district will certify the appraisal roll to all the taxing entities. Then the taxing entities take on the responsibility of determining what kind of budgets and what kind of tax rates they need in order to provide the services to the community and to the citizens that live in those districts. For example, school districts are setting tax rates, the county is setting tax rates, the cities are setting tax rates during this time. And then finally, the collection phase. Your tax bills normally go into the mail. They're sent typically by the Tarrant County Tax Assessor Collector, or you possibly could be sent a tax bill from the Grapevine Colleyville Tax Assessor Collector. Those are sent out around October the 1st. Property owners have then the right and the duty to pay those property taxes between October the 1st and January the 31st. And then finally, there's sometimes situations arise where people don't pay their taxes, can't pay their taxes, and then there's a delinquent tax collection phase. Go ahead. We're located at 2500 Hanley-Interville Road. We're also located at www.tad.org, tad.org. You can find us at either location. Community, go ahead and put up the next slide. Community role. Each taxing unit, one thing I think it's important for taxpayers to understand is, as I mentioned it from the very beginning, is there's a separation between the appraisal district and the taxing units. There's 73 taxing units in Tarrant County, which is made up of the county, the cities, the schools, the college district, the hospital, and these municipal utility districts or special districts. They all set tax rates that determine exactly how much you wind up having to pay. Yes, value plays a role. The appraised value that we put on your property does play a role in how much tax you pay. But also the tax rates that are set by the local taxing units also play a role. And I know the city of Fort Worth has been a good partner as far as lowering their tax rates over the last several years as property values have escalated across not only Texas, but across the United States. Property just costs more. There's more demand right now than there is a supply of homes to meet that demand. That's what's causing property values to be on the rise. But the taxing units will determine what their budget needs are and what their tax rates needs are in setting this out. So the appraisal district deals with the value and the exemptions. The taxing units deal with the budgets that they need to provide services and the tax rates that will generate those budgets. Go ahead. Just throw this out there. Tarrant Appraisal District is very proud to have received some recent awards. We were voted one of the best companies to work for in 21 and 22. That was not anything that I did. It was actually the employees that did that through a survey. And we've also received some designations by the International Association of Assessing Officers and by the Government Finance Association with regards to financial reporting. The Tarrant Appraisal Review Board. I want to talk about this briefly, and then I think we'll be done. The Tarrant Appraisal District is the entity that, as I said, deals with the appraisals, deals with exemptions, and deals with ownership. If you feel like that your value is too high, you can protest to the Appraisal Review Board. The Appraisal Review Board is not part of the Tarrant Appraisal District. These are individuals that come and serve at the appraisal district's building, but they're appointed by the local administrative law judge. And they come to basically sort of be a jury between the property owner and the appraisal district. Again, if you feel like your value is incorrect and you file a protest, you'll go before an appraisal review board to offer evidence and offer argument regarding what you think the value should be. This is the body that determines those protests and settles those protests. Now, I would like to encourage folks that if you're interested, you can apply to be a member of this appraisal review board. We are looking for members right now. The appraisal district is the one that basically puts an application out on its appraisal district website to encourage folks, if they choose, to apply for this role. Now, normally speaking, it's made up of folks that are retired that have time to come down during the summer and spend time at the appraisal district office and work through these disputes, work through these hearings. So most of the folks that are there, they either are retired or they don't currently have a job. And they do get paid a per diem, a daily per diem. It's not you're not employed by the appraisal district. You're actually considered like an independent contractor, but you have the ability to earn a daily per diem for serving on this board. So I would encourage anyone that has the time. We're looking for not only diversity within race and gender, but we're also looking for diversity in geography. We would like to find people from all over the county to come and serve in this particular very important role. So with that, I will turn it back over to the City of Fort Worth. I will ask is if there's any questions, that I'll be more than happy to answer questions. We do have a question.
How often do you have to file the homestead? Do they expire? Do they go for the life?
Great question, and I'm going to repeat it in case anyone didn't hear it. The question was, how often do you have to apply for a homestead exemption? You only have to apply once. They do not expire per se. As long as you qualify for the homestead exemption, you can continue to get it. Now, the law does say that the chief appraiser or the office can ask you to reapply if we believe that there's some reason that we need to do so. An example would be people that are age 65 and older. We ask them to reapply about once every 5 to 10 years, just to see if they're still there and they still qualify. Disabled individuals, we'll ask them to reapply once every 3 to 5 years just to see that the disability still exists and they're still qualified for that. But generally speaking, we don't make folks reapply very often unless some reason we find that something has changed. For example, if you were to move your property into a trust, if it went from your name and went into a trust, we would ask you to reapply. You could still qualify for it, but now the application needs to be in the trust name. If you transferred your property to your children, but you retained a life estate, things of that nature, we would ask you to reapply. You would still be eligible, but we may require an updated application or something like that. But typically, most people, once they apply, they don't make any changes. They keep the exemption until they either sell the house or move somewhere else. Great question.
Another question.
Yes.
Let's say there's somebody did apply for homestead, but they don't remember or they don't know where to look that information up. Where can you go?
You can go to our website. If you put in your account number on our website, scroll to the very bottom of your information page, it talks about the exemptions that you may have. Now, I will tell you that state law does not allow us to put any information on our website that would reveal your age. So if you're a person that has a homestead and an over 65 exemption, the homestead will be listed there. But I cannot list the over 65 exemption because that would give an indication of what your age is. So you can look to see, though, if you still have a homestead exemption on your account by going to our website, or you can call us. But going to our website is the easiest. If you scroll, if you go put in your account number, hit search, you'll be given a list, and you find your account and you click on the account number, then it'll pull up all the information about your account. Go all the way to the bottom where exemptions are, and it should be listed there. If you don't have an exemption listed, you probably need to consider applying for one.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Another question.
If there's a homeowner that becomes deceased and the daughter, she's currently residing in that property and trying to become the homeowner to apply for the programs that the city of Fort Worth offers, are they able to go on to TAD.org to maybe submit a death certificate for that address and change the information online, or do they have to actually go to the office?
Okay, that's another really good question. I'll restate the question in case anyone didn't hear it. If a person dies and becomes deceased that owns a piece of property, and there's a daughter that lived in the house with the deceased individual, what do they have to do basically to get the property changed into their names, right? They need, this is a legal issue, okay? Because generally speaking, yes, that person may be an heir to the property. So there is a provision in the law that's called an heirship, to where that daughter can possibly continue with the exemption, the homestead exemption. Now, if, for example, let's say the deceased person was 65 years of age or older and they were receiving that exemption, The daughter, if they're not 65 or older, they won't be eligible for the 65 exemption. They would only be eligible for the homestead exemption. But they do need to come to our office. They do need to fill out some paperwork in order to get that transferred. Now, to transfer the actual ownership from the deceased person into, say, the daughter's name, that may require other legal documents with regards to a affidavit of ownership. It may require probate. It may require an attorney being involved to actually transfer the property from the deceased individual to the daughter. It's not an automatic thing. A lot of people do think that, yes, when mom or dad passed away, and the will says that I get the property, that the will is enough for us to transfer the ownership. That's not necessarily the case. So they do need to probably seek some legal advice, either through a lawyer, through a title company, maybe through a real estate agent that might have dealt with this before. But yes, they can get information from us and we'll help them through that process of who they may need to talk to. But we cannot legally transfer ownership without the proper file document. And generally where that document is filed is with Mary Louise Nicholson's office at the county clerk, the Tarrant County clerk. Any other questions? Yes.
Can you discuss the qualifications for senior citizens to apply for homestead?
Yes. I want to be very clear. There's an exemption called a homestead exemption, and then there's a separate exemption called an over 65 or older exemption. There's a separate exemption for a disabled persons exemption. To qualify for the homestead, you have to live in the property on January 1st. You had to own the property on January 1st, and you don't have a homestead anywhere else. One other requirement is your driver's license address has to match the physical address of the property as well. For a person that's age 65 or older, they can come in and apply during the year in which they turn 65. So if, for example, your birthday is on October the 7th, you can come in on October the 7th, apply for the 65 and older exemption, provide the proper documentation of driver's license and proof of your age, and then you can get the exemption as though you lived there on January 1st. Now, there is a new law that was passed last session that if you buy a home, let's say you buy a home on July the 1st, and that home has never had a homestead exemption in the past, you can come in on July the 1st and apply for the homestead exemption and get an exemption for that property for that year. But let's say you're buying a home from me. I have a homestead exemption on my property, and you buy my home. Since my home already has a homestead exemption, you will have to wait until January the 1st of the following year. You'll be getting the benefit of the exemption that's already on my property. So I know that sounds a little confusing. The disabled persons exemptions, what qualifies you there is that you have the homestead on the property, and then you're applying for the disabled persons exemption. There's no age restriction. It all has to do with your disability. Now, we don't determine whether or not you're disabled. The determining factor is whether the Social Security Administration has determined you're disabled and you're receiving Social Security disability payments. And there's some paperwork that you'll receive from the Social Security Administration in order to prove that up. Any other questions? Yes.
The required documentation to file the homestead. I know that there's a driver's license for state issued ID. You'll take any other ID, like a passport from another country or ID from other countries?
Great question. The question was, what type of paperwork or proving ID do we require for the homestead? The law says that it has to be a driver's license or a Texas state issued identification card. We don't take passports. We don't take driver's license from other countries or anything like that. If a person comes in and they're applying for it, they will have to go down and get a state issued driver's license. And in some cases of like maybe the elderly that maybe they've given up their driver's license, they can get a state issued Texas ID. And those two documents there will be what determines eligibility, along with the ownership and living there as a principal place of residence. But those are the only two legal documents that are required by law. Anything else won't work.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a quick question for you. How about if someone owns multiple properties? do they still have to physically live there? In order to qualify, so if you just own multiple properties, you couldn't file homestead exemptions to all 3 or 4
Yeah,
houses.
so the question is what happens if you own multiple properties? Can you have homesteads on all the properties, or do you only have a homestead on one property? In Texas, you're only allowed to have a homestead, you're only allowed to claim one principal residence. So you would have to choose which home, if you did own multiple homes, you'd have to choose which home is going to be your principal place of residence. And again, to get the homestead, your driver's license, address on your driver's license has to match that principal residence. Even if you owned a home in Florida or you owned a home in Colorado, if you're claiming a homestead on a home in Colorado as your principal residence, you would not be eligible for a homestead in Texas. You would have to get rid of the homestead in Colorado or Florida or someplace like that and make this your principal residence. So you can only have one homestead and it has to be on your principal. And then the question is a lot of times, well, what determines principal? You know, what if I live in one house 50% of the time and I live in the other house? There's nothing in the law that actually goes to the level of determining what the math is. But we just say you just have to show us what your principal place of residency is. Another way we can look at it is where are your utility bills sent? What address do you have typically your utility bill sent to? Where is your tax bill sent to? That would be an indication of the principal residence that you are at, where you receive your mail, what does your driver's license say, things of that nature. Really good questions. Any more? All right, well, I guess we'll wrap up this session. We appreciate anyone that joined online from doing this. Again, we're going to have several more of these. I think we go tomorrow to the Como Community Center. We would encourage everyone that can come out there. We're going to be there at 6 o'clock in the evening, so it might be a little more convenient for those of us that are working, but we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much.